Honourable Member for Brekum West, are you on your feet? Page 27.
I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I try to catch your attention at page 25, item number X, the Principal State Attorney, Office of the Attorney General, Ministry of Justice. The name Mrs. in Quantabisa. It should be an N, not an M. In Quantabisa, an N.
Very well. Page 28, 29, page 30, page 31, 32, page 33, Honourable members, in the absence of any further corrections, the votes and proceedings of Thursday, March 23, 2023 are hereby adopted as a true record of proceedings. Honourable members, there's an official report. Official report of Tuesday, November 22, 2022 is available for corrections. Honourable members, if there are any corrections, I'll take them now. Any corrections? Yes, Honourable Member.
100%. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's one of the official and a formal communication by Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, honourable members, we will move to items the number 3. Should we like, Mr. Speaker, honourable members, we will move the item number 3 instead of we will move to item the number 3. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Well, I think the appropriate rendition should be, we should move to the item number 3. So we'll come before item. We would move to the item number 3. The answer department should take note and effect the correction. Yes. Any further, please? Any further corrections? Honourable members, in the absence of any further corrections, the official report of Tuesday, November 22, 2022 is hereby adopted as a true record of proceedings. Item number 5. Item number 5. Business statement. Yes, Honourable Deputy Leader.
Mr. Speaker, with your leave, I want to proceed. Mr. Speaker, the committee met to arrange the business for the ensuing week. Mr. Speaker, the report of the team has been circulated, and Mr. Speaker, attached here too is a 15-page document which spells out the order in which is for the ensuing week is to proceed. I rely on everything in this document without more and submit that the House accordingly adopts this report in accordance with Order 62 of the rules of this House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, honourable members. The business statement has been presented to the House. Any comments? well, honourable members, and the business statement presented is hereby adopted.
If it pleases Mr. Speaker,
Yes.
we pray for leave to vary the order of business and go straight to commencement of public business. And with your leave again, we proceed to take item 9, motion, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. Minority desk, yes.
Understanding was achieved at conclave, so we can go ahead.
Very well. Item 9, motion. Shall the Vice Chairman present the report on behalf of the committee?
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the leave granted me to present the committee's report. Mr. Speaker,
Okay, very well.
may we
Let it
agree on
after the presentation what we agreed. We have already agreed on time and the number of things at the committee. So after the presentation of the report, please.
Mr. Speaker, this report has already been presented to the House in part. And first, today, Mr. Speaker, we have these two nominees whose appointments are still outstanding. Mr. Speaker, upon going through the vetting process, it became clear that all the nominees meet the constitutional threshold to merit this nomination. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, we should have no doubt at all in our mind that should these gentlemen get to the, which is the apex court of the land, they will have the capacity, the knowledge, the understanding to do that which is constitutionally required of them as justices of the Supreme Court. Mr. Speaker, everything about them have been well captured in this report, and without any further statement on them, I pray the House to adopt this report, which report, Mr. Speaker, makes a recommendation for us to approve of them. Mr. Speaker, the decision on these two is a majority decision, but as a House, we are fortified by the rules. Consider them basis of consensus. It isn't always the case that because the committee made a recommendation by majority decision, we are bound as plenary to also say that we are going to take a vote or take a secret ballot. We can, Mr. Speaker, as required of us by the rules, to consider this by consensus. So, Mr. Speaker, I would want to invite members to approve these nominees by consensus. Mr. Speaker, they are going to the apex court. It should not be seen that as a House we were divided on their approval. it shouldn't be said that it was the majority MPP that proved them. It must be said that this House proved them. Mr. Speaker, if you look at Justice Ernest Yao Jewu, Mr. Speaker, he is coming from the Volta region. He's coming from the Volta region. And Mr. Speaker, this nominee, if you look at those on the bench now from the Volta region, some are retiring, and this government wants a fair representation across board. This is a man who is a self-made man, has practiced law, has gone to the High Court, and today, Mr. Speaker, a shining star. It must not be seen that for reasons unbeknown to us, we will vote against him. Mr. Speaker, history must not record that. And again, Mr. Speaker, if you look at the other justice, my Lord Kumsin, Mr. Speaker, if you look at his CV, the work he has done in private practice, the work he has done on the bench from Central Region. Recently, Mr. Speaker, a justice of the Supreme Court who was affected during the COVID lost his life, and Mr. President felt that there is a need to look at a competent hand from the region to be promoted. And Mr. Speaker, is it the case that the Honorable Atufosin, Honorable Afenyo-Markin, and members of this House will look at this nominee who has constitutionally qualified, who qualifies by the Constitution to go to the Apex Court and say that for some reasons unknown to the laws of the land is going to be denied that opportunity. Mr. Speaker, that would also leave so much to be desired. Speaker, I would want members to look at the work of the court, peruse the CVs and everything that is contained in this report, and accept the invitation by me as a mover of motion to, Mr. Speaker, approve this nomination by consensus, and I repeat, by consensus, and debating against the rules if, Mr. Speaker, they accede to this request by me. Mr. Speaker, for the avoidance of doubt, I will seek to conclude by referring to Order 174. Mr. Speaker, 174 of the Rules of the House provides, and I quote, "The committee shall report to Parliament within 3 days after it has concluded its proceedings when Parliament is sitting. Parliamentary approval of persons record of appointment shall be by secret or by consensus." So, Mr. Speaker, the disjointing effect of this rule is clear. That is my invitation to you to choose the consensus approach will not be out of the rule. So, Mr. Speaker, I once again conclude by saying that members should let us deal with this by consensus, because they are going to the Apex Court of the. I thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. Right, Honourable, I thank you for the opportunity
to contribute to the report,
Honorable,
to second the
Honorable
motion.
No, it's no contribution yet. Seconded. It has to be seconded before we come to contribution.
Thank you.
Are you saying it?
Thank you for your guidance, Mr. Speaker. I thank you for the opportunity to second the motion, and in doing so, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to make a few comments on the report titled 28th Report of the Appointments Committee on His Excellency the President's nominations for appointments as Justices of the Supreme Court. Mr. Speaker, I listened to the Deputy Majority Leader make the rallying call on all of us to come together as one to approve the nominees. And as part of the reasons given for why we should come together, Mr. Speaker, he says that one of them is from the Volta region. And Mr. Speaker, that wouldn't have been an issue. But because he makes it one, it is important that in contributing to this, one also puts on record that in the last couple of years, His Excellency the President has made a number of nominations to the Supreme Court. Some nominations have been heavily criticized, but none has been made with origin or hailing from the northern part of this country. And Mr. Speaker, like I said, it wouldn't have been an issue, but because the Deputy Majority Leader makes the case that one of the nominees is from a particular region, and for that reason, people must support it, then it becomes necessary to wonder why over the years, so many nominations have been made by the President, but none has been made from the north of this country. Mr. Speaker, I talk about the northern region, Mr. Speaker, the northern region. Mr. Speaker, the north has 6 regions currently. 6 regions. Mr. Speaker, and perhaps I should take the opportunity of this to make the point that it's not one region. The north is made up of 6 regions, just as the south is made up of many regions. 6 regions constitute the north, and there are more than 7 regions that also constitute the south. And so, Mr. Speaker, when I speak of northern region, I speak of northern region and not the 6 northern regions. None has come from the northern region. Mr. Speaker, again, it's not about the origin of the nominee or the nominees. That is not important to us on this side. Mr. Speaker, it is about the partisanship of the nominees. It is about the judicial philosophy of these nominees. Mr. Speaker, it's about the concern and the fear that these nominees have the tendency to defer more to the NPP executives. Mr. Speaker, it is not about where they hail from. It is more about their partisanship, their judicial philosophy, and their tendency to defer to the NPP executive in power. Mr. Speaker, point also has to be made that many people have expressed concern about the number of judges that have been appointed by this president, especially because there is no ceiling stipulated by our constitution. But the fact that there is no ceiling does not mean that a president should be unbridled in his nominations to the bench. Mr. Speaker, it has been so for many years without a ceiling. But the fact remains that presidents before this president have been disciplined when it comes to the nominations of people to the bench. Mr. Speaker, that is why it is important that we raise the issue numbers that are, up to the bench, and whether there is a need for us to have such numbers, especially when yesterday we finished the debate on the size of government and the need for us to lessen the burden or the cost of maintaining officers such as even the judicial officers who are, incidentally, Mr. Speaker, also members of Article 71. And that also adds to the cost of governance. And so, Mr. Speaker, akin to this debate is the points that were also made yesterday, the need for government to be measured in its aspect. Mr. Speaker, I come now to the specifics. And I will want to look at the nomination of Justice Kumsin. Mr. Speaker, when Justice Kumsin appeared before you, one of the issues that he had to contend with was his role as the commissioner in the Ejura incident. Mr. Speaker, it was shocking that the nominee, a justice nominated to be on the bench, indicated that he was unaware that the sole witness he relied on to come to the conclusion that Kaka may have died as a result of a family feud. Earlier, that same witness had made contradictory claims to the police. When he appeared before the committee, claimed he did not know about this contradiction and that it was brought to his attention during the sittings of the commission. Mr. Speaker, clearly he indicated that their commission was a fact-finding one, and for that fact-finding committee to miss such an important evidence, which absence led to the conclusion that the witness who appeared before them and indicated that there was a family feud which may have resulted in Kaka's death was final and was determining the course of action that members of his family were supposed to suffer was quite unfortunate. And Mr. Speaker, this leaves much to be desired and actually points even to the thoroughness of this person that will be a law at the Supreme Court, where lives can actually be cut short by his say-so. And so, Mr. Speaker, this particular oversight of the nominee, in my view, is another reason why this side of the House must oppose his nomination to the Supreme Court. Mr. Speaker, with these few words, I want to call colleagues on this side to stand up to be counted, to stand with the people of Ghana, and to the President to go back to the drawing board, to look through the judiciary, to give credit to experience, and to thoroughly examine all those who are qualified for such nominations without partisan consideration. Because clearly, these nominees were not considered on merit. They were in some cases, jumped over their colleagues. And Mr. Speaker, it is clear that Justice Ernest Yaugao, for example, could have still enjoyed a lot of mentoring and if you like, teaching from his colleagues on the bench before he's considered. And Mr. Speaker, I have to put this on record. You were on the committee, and even after his vetting, behind the scenes, when members had conversations, a lot on the other side had cause to even complain about the depth of this nominee. And so, Mr. Speaker, let us not empower these people, remembering that going to the bench is like a license to kill, because trust me, we still have on our books that can ensure that someone will be sentenced to death by a Supreme Court judge. And so we must ensure that the people who are going to the bench are people that have the depth, the people who are thorough, the people who will not overlook evidence before they come to the conclusion. And people especially will not defer easily to the executive. Mr. Speaker, on this note, once again, I call on colleagues to join us to oppose this nomination and to give the president to go back to the drawing board and to consider those more meritorious and perhaps will find favor with us in this house. I thank you.
Yes, Honorable Amoah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the motion on the floor. Mr. Speaker, it's saddening when colleagues in this house attempt to politicize appointments to the highest court of the land. Mr. Speaker, my good friend Honorable Suhaini talked about the fact that there hasn't been nominations from some parts of the north. Justice Yoni Kulendi hails from the Upper West region. It's part of the 6th Northern region. You have also Justice Scott Waman, also from the northern part of the country, Mr. Speaker. So it's not a case that we don't have justices from the northern part of the country. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, what we ought to abet us to are the provisions of the Constitution with regards to appointments to the Supreme Court. That must be the test. And I refer my colleagues to Article 18, Clause 4, that a person shall not be qualified for appointment as a justice of the Supreme Court unless he is of high moral character and proven integrity and is not less than 15 years standing as a lawyer. Mr. Speaker, 2 nominees satisfy Article 128(4). Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, there's often been discussion about ceilings and perceived packing of the court. These nominations came as a result of the demise of Justice Mafusau, the retirement of Justice Agnes Doje, and 2 others. My question is, the current Chief Justice will be retiring in June. Justice Jones Doche will be retiring in May. Justice Amegache has retired. Justice Ni Ashikote has retired. So are we saying to the country that the President should not exercise his powers under the Constitution by reappointing other qualified persons to the court? That is the question I'm asking the minority today. Mr. Speaker, they often talk about packing of the Supreme Court. We've asked every nominee who has appeared before the Supreme Court, and the answers have been simple.
Honorable, be clear. Did the nominees appear before the Supreme Court?
Before the Appointments Committee, I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, that the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court is not only on the determination of electoral disputes emanating from presidential elections. They have your review jurisdiction, their appellate jurisdiction, reviews from decisions from the National House of Chiefs, and many others. So having 14 members determining matters, including their own supervisory jurisdiction, which they determine every day, does not defeat the purpose or amount to packing of the Supreme Court. I've mentioned 4 justices of the court who are retiring between now and July. And must we leave only 8 of them to perform over 7 other jurisdictional functions as provided for under the Constitution, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, we examine the nominees. You may have your differences, but for me, the one who stood out before the committee was Justice Kumsin. To the extent that the issues of Ejura, as captured in the report, and its answers, and the gaps that our nominee referred to, If you look at page 13, Mr. Speaker, let me even go back to page 12 on the draft matter. He said, and I quote, that in his response that the committee was not aware of any contradictory statements made by any witness, police, neither did it receive any such statements tendered in evidence. According to his lordship, it was a fact-finding work and only assisted the witnesses to tell their stories without any cross-examination as pertains in criminal prosecutions. Mr. Speaker. So, per the terms of reference and the constitutional instrument of the committee, it was only to undertake a fact-finding hearing to ascertain the truth or otherwise of the matter. The Speaker, those matters that bordered on criminality, he said to the committee, were being investigated by the police, and I believe that is where we should channel our energies. Nobody takes delight in anyone losing his life. I believe that we must accord the nominee the respect and the answers he provided to the committee. Mr. Speaker, I've observed nominations under President Mills, President Mahama, President Kufuor, President Kufuor. All of them try to strike a balance between academia, practitioners, and researchers to beef up the delivery of justice on the highest court of the land. You recall that President Kufuor brought Justice Ban Modibo Okran, may his soul rest in peace, Justice Kluje. They were all in academia, and if you read their judgment, the death within, and Sekchum, you could clearly see the weight and depth in their judgments, Mr. Speaker. Recently, the former General Secretary of the PNC, Justice Scott Foreman, is writing one of the best decisions on the court. So why are we trying to belittle some of the appointment that the President is making in the of Justice Gau? For all you know, he goes there, he will emulate persons from Volta region who have excelled on the bench, like Justice Koje, Justice Badegbe, Kluje, Ajowe, Ajabin and Co. And I believe we must give him the support for him to go and distinguish himself on the bench. On every one of us to support the nominations and vote accordingly for them. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, you resumed.
Speaker, I thank you for the chance to add my voice in respect of the motion on the floor. Mr. Speaker, may I refer the House to the conclusion and general recommendation as brought by the House, by the committee before the House for consideration. It says that by a majority decision, the approval of Justice Ernest Yaugaiwu and Justice George Kingsley Coulson, the committee again requests the House to adopt this report and approve the nomination of the Supreme Court. Mr. Speaker, listen carefully to my brother, the Honorable Amoah, in imploring the House to approve of these who are already on the bench at the superior court level. That is something we can do. But the concerned side of the House is that it does appear that even though the Constitution says that the judiciary is independent, the performance of its functions, there appears to be a certain attempt to deliberately populate the Supreme Court with people who are clearly party persons. Mr. Speaker, not the Supreme Court alone, but other constitutionally mandated independent institutions, like the Electoral Commission. Mr. Speaker, we woke up 4 days ago to hear the Electoral Commission.
Honorable, can you restrict yourself to the report?
Mr. Speaker, it is within context. It is related. These are constitutionally mandated institutions that are supposed to be independent. We are speaking of constitutionally independent organs and institutions of state. That there should be a deliberate attempt to insulate them from political influence. Is the point I'm making. So yes, I will speak about the Supreme Court nominations and appointments. I want to bring to bear on the debate the fact that we are observing that other institutions of state that are supposed to be independent in the performance of their functions are being polluted with political persons. And that is a worry. Mr. Speaker, the court is presently constituted by about 14 judges, and told that about 4 of them are due for retirement or are on retirement. There is another unholy observation, and that is the decision by the Chief Justice to extend beyond 70 years the life of a judge on the Supreme Court. It's totally unconstitutional. It is only the appointing authority, which is the president, that can extend the life of a judge beyond 70 years on the bench, not the Chief Justice. But it is happening. A judge retires at attaining 70 years and he continue to hear cases beyond 70 years. And it is also a worry. And yet we cite the same reasons. We cite the same reasons to say that because these are going on retirement, so we should replace them. Mr. Speaker, one other worrying trend is the fact that during the 2023 budget hearings in December, for purposes of approving the budget, the judiciary told us that because they want to make access to justice more economically cheaper and more closer to the people, we should approve of their budget and even enhance it so that judges and courts can be more closer to the people. And in doing so, they intend to recruit, in fact, 15 more Court of Appeals. That was done in December. 15 Court of Appeal judges were recruited. Mr. Speaker, in January, the Chief Justice issued a letter suspending Court of Appeal hearings in Cape Coast, in Ho, in Koforidua, in Tamale. How is it possible that you want to make just access closer to the people, and yet you are down courts that are closer to the people, so that an appeal from say Tulu must be brought to the Court of Appeal in Kumasi, and an appeal from say Karachi or Nkwanta in the Oti region be brought to Accra. They could have done that hearing at the Court of Appeal level in Ho. So, Mr. Speaker, we are worried about these sort of developments within the judiciary. By all means, we want you to appoint persons to hear matters on the bench. But when you tell us that we should increase your budget because we want to bring justice close to the people, and when we increase the budget and approve of them, and you close courts that are closer to the people and bring them to the metropolitan center, this house ought to be worried. Mr. Speaker, Justice Kumsin tutored me as a young practitioner in 2010 thereabouts, and it is good that it is incumbent upon that fact that it's been elevated. Mr. Speaker, Justice Garu, whom I know very well, it is incumbent that he is being elevated. But the circumstances upon the elevation, Mr. Speaker, is what is of worry to us. Mr. Speaker, we are saying that in November 2022, 2 Supreme Court judges have been nominated, vetted, and appointed. Mr. Speaker, in December, 15 Court of Appeal judges have been appointed. Mr. Speaker, early this year, sometime early January, 21 High Court judges have been appointed.
By the same president.
Mr. Speaker, we were told in this house just a couple of weeks ago that the president is only building about 6 High Court judges, High Courts, which are under construction. So it is the overpopulation that is of concern to us. It is the overpopulation that is of concern to us. Not because we don't want the bench to function. Yes, we want the bench to function, but we are saying that it is becoming top heavy. It is becoming top heavy to the extent that even those who are on retirement, you don't want them to go. Today, the other uncomfortable practice is asking Supreme Court judges to act as additional High Court judges, bringing them 2 levels down. Mr. Speaker, when they enter judgment as a High Court judge, and it goes on appeal to the Supreme Court, would the Supreme Court be deciding on that matter as a judgment from a Supreme Court judge or as a judgment from a High Court judge? Because for a judge to enter judgment, the level of reasoning is not only on the level that he operates from. So when a Supreme Court judge enters judgment at the High Court level, it is troubling that the Supreme Panel will reverse it on grounds that it is a judgment from the High Court. That is my humble view on the matter. So by all means, let High Court judges operate courts, and let the Court of Appeal operate at the Court of Appeal, so that the way Amoah says that the Supreme Court has varied original jurisdiction in several other matters, and the Supreme Court today has so many cases that when you file a matter that is of constitutionally urgent interpretative matter, it doesn't take forever to be heard. Mr. Speaker, with these few words, I thank you for the opportunity.
I want to summarize.
Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity given me to contribute to the motion, approve the nominations by the President for these 2 Supreme Court judges. In this country, there are certain organizations that we need to be very careful and make sure that we do not extend our partisan behavior into them. One is the judiciary, and I can say that if we try to be partisan with the judiciary, the nation will break down. Another is security. We must take our security measures very serious, so that when on both sides of the divide, we can come to consensus. Mr. Speaker, I would want to caution that we must be very careful in trying that we want to appoint judges, and we don't want any of them to be partisan or tilted towards a certain party level or be political in nature, we ourselves, we must not be seen to be partisan or political. There are two judges. Earlier on, my colleague Honorable Buama has cited Constitution Article 1284, and it says that a penal of 15 years standing at the bar and of high moral character qualifies to be at the Supreme Court. There are a lot of judges that have been picked from the bar because of their experience, and straight they have gone to the Supreme Court. The two judges that are before us have gone to the bar, they have the experience, they've gone to the bench, and they qualify to be at the Supreme Court. All these other matters that we are looking at are extraneous. Mr. Speaker, when a person is appointed, the person has a responsibility to make sure that he delivers the responsibility to the nation. We are suspecting that when a person is appointed and he goes to the bench, the person is going to tilt towards one political party. And I think this is very speculative. We must actually look at what they have given to the nation, the conscience that they have given, and I think they are more than qualified to be at the Supreme Court. Neither, we should not wait until the problem arises before we find solution. It is clear that most of the Supreme Court judges have either retired and some are going to retire very soon. There are times that we call on a full bench and we have to call probably 11 judges of the Supreme Court or even more. We have had situations where we needed more judges to make a decision. Apparently, if we are looking at those who are going to retire, we have less than the number, and the president in his wisdom have nominated qualified and competent professional bodies, lawyers, to be at the Supreme Court. I can only urge my colleagues on the other hand, on the other side of the act, that let us together resolve and approve this nomination. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, one more. Yes, Honorable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Speaker rise to oppose the nomination of these two justices to the Supreme Court. The Speaker, the simple reason is that, as we recollect, I was on the Appointments Committee with you. And Mr. Speaker, I'm happy my colleague, Honorable Patrick Buama, was happily quoting Article 128 of the 1992 Constitution, 1284, that was talking about who qualifies to be a Supreme Court judge. But what he forgets to add, so Article 296 of the 1992 Constitution, that mandates persons vested with discretionary powers what they need to do. The Speaker, with your permission, I will simply just quote Article 296, that are discretionary powers. I quote, where in this Constitution or in any other law discretionary power is vested in person or authority, A, that discretionary power shall be deemed to imply a duty to be fair and candid. B, the exercise of the discretionary power shall not be arbitrary, capricious, or biased, either by resentment, prejudice,
or person like, and shall be in accordance with due process of law. And C, where the person or authority is not a judge or other officer, there shall be published by constitutional instrument or statutory instrument regulations that are not inconsistent with the provision of this constitution or that other law to govern the exercise of discretionary powers. Mr. Speaker, why did I choose to refer you to the discretionary powers? Mr. Speaker, with all humility, I've had the great privilege of vetting almost all the Supreme Court judges that are sitting on the bench today. And Mr. Speaker, you and I know there are three legs through which you can rise to be at the Supreme Court. One, either you are academia, where you have excelled in academia and therefore you have been moved from the academia into the bench. The second leg is you have been in private practice, just like the Chief Justice. You've been in private practice and you distinguish yourself in private practice. That meets the minimum years. And the last leg, which is very, very important, you join the bench and rise through the bench to get to the Supreme Court. Mr. Speaker, there have been so few exceptions in the past where persons at the High Court have been appointed straight into the Supreme Court. Mr. Speaker, remember those times. How many judges do we even have in the whole country? You have at the back of your mind. What were the number of judges that were being trained? You have to have that at the back of your mind. And Mr. Speaker, the caliber of persons and the way they have practiced at the High Court before they were jumped into the Supreme Court. Speaker, one typical example is Justice J.N.K. Taylor, who was moved from the High Court into the Supreme Court. And Mr. Speaker, this is some of the pedigree of Justice Taylor, who was moved from the High Court to the Supreme Court. Justice Taylor served as a Crown Counsel. He served as a State Attorney. Served as a Director of Public Prosecution. He acted as Acting Chief Attorney General and Commissioner of Justice in 1960. As a High Court judge, he is the chair of the Taylor Asset Commission. Mr. Speaker, and he has served in these capacities, Mr. Speaker, with minimum of almost a decade and a half before he was moved to Supreme Court. Why are we still opposed to Justice Joe from a High Court to the Supreme Court? Mr. Speaker, check the records. Yes, he was in private practice. Supposed to join the bench. And the moment he joined the bench, in less than 2 years, you are jumping such a person from the High Court straight to the Supreme Court. When others have been on the High Court for more than 17 years. Mr. Speaker, now, the reason why I quoted 296 of the 1922 Constitution is that we are trying to check why was he being jumped in 2 years at the High Court to go to the Supreme Court. Only to notice, this is who has served as a parliamentary candidate for the New Patriotic Party on 2 occasions.
Hold on. Your point of order, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I want to say that I was privileged to be among the 3 people who were nominated by the bar, the present Chief Justice, Justice Doche, and myself, because they are assessed us and to go to the High Court for a period, and we were there. So it was done by the bar. Please,
Order, please. Order. Yes, can I listen?
Right Honorable Speaker, those number of years he's talking about wasn't applicable. I chose that I was too outgoing to go to this. So I want to say that it is not the case that is strange. The bar assesses its own members and decides who they think have made a mark, and they would send you there, and you don't need to stay the number of years that I stayed there. Thank you, Mr. President.
So, what did he say that is not correct? Very well, please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My colleague have simply waited to get an opportunity to espouse his views, because what he was going to say are flouting any of the rules or any of our standing orders. Now, Mr. Speaker, to continue. Mr. Speaker, this is a gentleman who has served as a parliamentary candidate for the New Patriotic Party on 2 occasions. And Mr. Speaker, very interesting, and this is worth mentioning. Mr. Speaker, I rightly said, with all humility, I have the great privilege of vetting all the justices that are currently sitting on the bench. Mr. Speaker, none of them who appeared before us at the time that he or she was a justice of the Superior Court, whether High Court or Appeal Court, was serving on any public board. This is the justice who is just about 2 years at the High Court, and he was still the member of the governing board of the whole, hospital. Meaning that he was playing an executive function even as a judge. You cannot gloss over this anomaly. Because that's why I was saying, Mr. Speaker, Article 296.
Sorry, hold on. On a point of order. Can I hear your order, please?
Mr. Speaker, I crave your indulgence that the honorable member Mr. Speaker, the honorable member was sick. The honorable member of Aswasi is misleading this house into some dangerous territory. Yes, he has made 2 statements which will come back to hurt all of us here. He is saying, Mr. Speaker, somebody is being promoted to the Superior Court or Supreme Court of Ghana just because he has been twice every parliamentary candidate. Mr. Speaker, me and him was on the appointed committee of Parliament when we appointed Poaman, General Secretary of PS. Mr. Speaker, that is one of the first things.
Honorable, wait. Are you on a point of order? So where's the order? Otherwise, this contribution you can give it to your next person.
Mr. Speaker, we have a duty in this house to be true and candid. Mr. Speaker, what my honor is doing is really partisanship, introducing partisanship. It is not true and it's not being candid. When Acheampong went to Supreme Court, he has been a general secretary, he has moved from one party to another.
Honorable Minister, please resume your seat. Please resume your seat. Honorable, there's just this point you made. I do not remember that it came out at the Appointments Committee, and I want to be clear that the nominee we are considering is a member of a governing board. I don't remember. It's in the report. Which page? Please guide me. I am getting correction. Can you guide me? Which part of the report?
Mr. Speaker, it was part of his CV. And his CV, Mr. Speaker, because he presented it to the House, I want to believe that it's a public record. And we can help. And in the report, page 24 of your own report. Mr. Speaker, page 24, the last but 1 paragraph. The nominee also the nominee also informed the committee that he has served on all levels of the National New Patriotic Party (NPP), including positions of Constituency Chairman, parliamentary candidate. His Lordship Justice Ernest Gawu again stated that he served of directors of the whole regional from 2020 to date. Mr. Speaker, this is your own report. Let me draw the attention of my colleagues. It is not a crime for anybody to have said a member of a New Progressive Party or National Democratic Congress who was aspired to be at the Supreme Court. If that person has been at the High Court, has moved to Appeal Court, and is moving to the Supreme Court, he would have taken a trajectory that shows that when you join the bench, you go through the system and you just simply don't jump at it. If that person was serving in private practice, what my colleague Honorable Ambrose was speaking, he was serving in practice, private practice. Just like the Chief Justice today, he was in private practice. When you serve in private practice and they see the nominating authority saying it deemed fit to nominate you, who will have issue with that? Because you are in private practice. But when you choose to join the bench, and then we are seeing a hop, a jump, we need to ask, what is instigating this jump? And I am deducing to say, this is the reason why we are having this hop. Because one, he's shown in the own report that he is virtually in bed with this current government. And because of that, Mr. Speaker, he is given something that he doesn't merit, that he doesn't deserve. Because on the High Court that he joined about 2.5 years ago, he came to meet so many other senior members. And today, he's not being just jumped to the Appeal Court, jumping to jump over the whole Appeal Court into the Supreme Court. At the time that, Mr. Speaker, we have so many at the Appeal Court that are marking time. That is the crux of the difficulty that we have with Justice Joe. And we are saying, Mr. Speaker, this House, like colleague Honorable Nabo is saying, Honorable Acheampong is saying, let us be mindful of the things that come and haunt us. Because when you set a bad precedent, tomorrow it becomes a yardstick for others to make the same demand. And then we, the politicians who come to sit and make law, will become the victims. Because once we allow this to pass through, by the grace of God in 2025, when MDC is in power, others who are in similar situation will be using that as a yardstick to demand that they also be sent to the Supreme Court on the same, and what we will be turning our country into. Instead, President Nana is saying that of all the men and women at the Appeal Court, he cannot find a good replacement for the justices that are retiring, as Honorable Patrick Obama is saying, unless he picks a party apparatchiki at the High Court who will jump over all others and go to the Supreme Court. Mr. Speaker, let's be fair. And that is what the Constitution mandates President Nana to do. If he fails to do it, this House, let's adhere to Article 2 and make sure that we are holding these people accountable. We are not just going to sit and allow people to just up. When it comes to Justice Kumsin, Justice Kumsin has served on the High Court. Mr. Speaker, he also just go to the Appeal Court. I must admit, he himself, in answering the question, Mr. Speaker, with your indulgence, when he was answering this question about the number of justices, he alluded to the fact, and Mr. Speaker, this is on page 8 of your committee's report, where he himself acknowledges that, well, there must be some criteria by Parliament where we have a regulation that will show that if you are coming through academia, what should be the criteria? If you are coming from the bench, what should be the criteria? If you are coming from private practice, what should be the criteria? It will guide, because it is not fair. In this case, he thought that he has stayed at the High Court much longer. Now people are using his short stay at the Appeal Court and using that to judge. But how long has he served at the High Court? Nobody is talking about that. What also here is Mr. Speaker, he just joined the Appeal Court, also trying to meet so many senior
other colleagues, and all of a sudden it's being hot. Mr. Speaker, if we approve this two numbers, what we are doing to this country is simply turning our judges to become sycophants, because through being sycophancy to the presidency or those in the corridors of power, you can just get help from high court, or you just join the appeals court within a short period, you just move on. And we will not be doing fair to ourselves and the citizenry, because the Supreme Court, as you yourself saw, Mr. Speaker, per Article 128(4) of the National Constitution, requires individuals proving integrity. You cannot allow people that the Constitution itself says they must have proven integrity to become when they have to be running on the corridors of power so that they can be appointed. That is the reason why we on the NDC side believe that these two justices must not and should not be approved to go to the Supreme Court. We must send it back to the sender. The president must do what is right. He must adhere to Article 296, and when he's making the choice, he should have at the back of his mind that he must be fair, he must be candid, and his choice must not be capricious and must not be arbitrary. So, Mr. Speaker, without wasting my time, because, like we said, we have made our mind. These two justices, with all fairness and with all humility, we have no qualms about their individual capacity. We hate them, but we are saying that we can sit and watch you just jump over others, and then tomorrow, when others want to come, they will use you as a. We don't want to set a bad precedent. And I'm calling on all of us, as members of this house, to know that yes, we will be willing to do the presidency bidding, but as we all are gradually turning ourselves into those powers outside who tend to want to manipulate this house, we should be careful, because we will be weakening this house. At once, yes, it's true, we have never rejected any Supreme Court justice here, but for once, let's tell the original. We are opening our eyes so widely, and let's set this good precedent to prevent a future government from using the same vehicle to bring people who simply are kowtowing or seem to be kowtowing to their whims and caprices is the reason why they are bringing them. If we do that, we'll be doing a great service to our country and our individual constituency. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to continue.
Who will be the last contributor from here? Yes, Honorable.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the discussion on motion to approve His Excellency's nominations for appointment to the Supreme Court. Mr. Speaker, Article 125 of our Constitution says that justice emanates from the people and shall be administered in the name of the Republic by the judiciary, which shall be independent and subject only to this Constitution. Mr. Speaker, clearly the judiciary is a very important arm that must be insulated from issues of partisanship and perception of bias. And as a member of the Appointments Committee, Speaker, having listened to all the nominees, I am very satisfied that the committee was right by its majority decision to approve all the nominees that are before us. I want to also respond to side, one of which is that even retired Honorable K.T Hammond, retired judges are asked to listen to cases. Mr. Speaker, I don't see why that is an issue, because if you read Article 145 of the 1992 Constitution, Article 145 clause 4, it clearly states that notwithstanding that he has attained the age at which he is replaced article to vacate his office, a person holding as a justice of a superior court or chairman of a regional tribunal may continue in office for a period not exceeding 6 months after attaining that age,
as may be necessary to enable him to deliver judgment or do any action in relation to proceedings that were commenced before his previous to his attaining. So, Mr. Speaker, clearly the Constitution allows a retired judge to continue to listen for a period of 6 months. So that is even an issue to be raised here. Mr. Speaker, I have also listened to contribution from Honorable Muntaka, who today is expressing concern that people have been appointed because they have affiliation to certain political parties. Mr. Speaker, I am very, very disappointed at that argument, because this is not the first time in our country that Indians who have been appointed to the highest part of our land have political backgrounds. Mr. Speaker, let me make references to such individuals. One of them is Justice Kobia and Justice Appel, who currently are the Supreme Court. Mr. Speaker, entities of the then PNDC government, and they were appointed under the NDC government. Mr. Speaker, nobody raised concern when these individuals were appointed. Secondly, Justice Boone and Bwedi. In fact, Justice Bwedi is a two-term NDC MP. Justice Bwedi is a two-term NDC MP. Mr. Speaker, as we speak today, the whole High Court serving, and he's working excellently. So, Mr. Speaker, in fact, he even presided over the election petition that involved Honorable Peter John Amoah, and we didn't raise any concern. The NDC was happy to send election petition to a former MP who was currently a judge, and today you stand in this house to complain that somebody has an MPP affiliation and should not be appointed. How double standard can you display in this house? So, Mr. Speaker, let us not give merit to these statements from the NDC. Let us focus on the competence of the individuals that have been nominated by His Excellency the President and give them the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, how are these individuals selected? And I will forgive Muntaka because he's not a lawyer. He has not been in the practice. So his assessment of how people must be nominated, I will forgive him. But Mr. Speaker, anybody who has been trained as a lawyer in this country understands how judges are appointed. In fact, Mr. Speaker, one personal experience is that I, as a young lawyer, was in a matter with Justice Appel when he was a practicing lawyer. On the same day when his name was mentioned to go to the Supreme Court, he was a practicing lawyer. Mr. Speaker, he had not even had 1 day of a judge experience. How do you question somebody? And that was done, that appointment done by President John Mahama and the NDC. How do you question President Akufo-Addo's appointment of an individual who has served 2 years as a judge at the High Court? You can appoint somebody who is a practicing lawyer.
Yes, Honorable Acheampong.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Members, can I have some order, please? I want to listen to him. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I heard my honorable colleague say that there's a future NDC MP. I will say honorable member to we don't have future NDC MP.
Honorable Acheampong.
We have members of parliament.
If you heard future, you heard wrongly. He mentioned names. He said a two-time MP. Yes. Bwedi is a sitting High Court judge in Ho. That is a fact.
And he proceeded by concluding that a future NDC MP.
He didn't say that.
We don't have future NDC MP.
He didn't
We
say
have
that.
sitting members of parliament.
Madam, please continue.
Mr. Speaker, clearly, my friend didn't sleep well last night, and that is why he two-term as future. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, another allegation that has been made by on the other side, Honorable Suhini, said that after the committee hearing, some of the members complained about the competence of one of the nominees. Mr. Speaker, I want that record to be expunged because there was no such discussions of unsatisfactory performance or incompetence by any of the nominees. Mr. Speaker, that is not even contained in this report, and I don't know where he's getting that information from. And I plead that we expunge that information from the Hansa. Mr. Speaker, clearly the competence of the nominated judges are clearly this. And if you read paragraph 4A, the perceived lack of transparency in the progression of judicial officers, Mr. Speaker, the nominee even took time playing to the committee that the system, the judicial service, has a way that they assess every judge and every magistrate in our country. He explained that at the end of every legal year, judges are required to submit judgments and rulings to the evaluation department of the judicial service, but he's not privy to what and how these considerations are done. So, Mr. Speaker, there is a format, a system, a process by which individual judges and magistrates of our country are assessed by the judicial system. So it makes them accountable. It is therefore unthinkable for anybody in this house to say that there is no basis for His Excellency to nominate the people that he has put before us. So, Mr. Speaker, clearly the concerns about competence is out of place. These individuals have shown that they merit the opportunity to serve at the highest level, and it will not be the first time or the last time anybody with a background will be nominated to the highest court of the land. Mr. Speaker, the previous people who have been nominated to the court, the Supreme Court of Ghana, have proved that their political backgrounds really do not matter when it comes dealing with legal issues. Legal issues are assessed on basis of the law and basis of the facts. So, Mr. Speaker, let us, and the evidence before the court, let us disregard all these baseless sentiments and approve these individuals that have been nominated by His Excellency the President to go to the Supreme Court. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, leaders. Do the leaders wish to contribute to this debate? No. Very well. Enough members. That brings us. Very well.
The minority.
Three each.
Okay,
we have done three each.
We didn't hear you.
Says he was going to allow leaders.
Okay. We have done three each.
You are now doing it. Okay.
We agreed contributors each, and we have done three each, haven't we? I think that's enough. That brings us to the end of the debate of the report. Now, our rules are clear. Where we are not ad idem, the recommendation is not by consensus. We make the decision by a secret ballot. In this case, I think we will now defer to the class table to organize and prepare members. Here is the Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I wasn't at the preceding meeting, but the information that I had was that the Speaker has indicated that he wants to be in the chair to preside the voting. If that is true, the Speaker, then we can put that aside, awaiting the Speaker, and deal with the revenue bills. And deal with the bills, debate them, and then when we are through, the Speaker comes, we take all of it. Amen.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I agree with the leader because we are about to pave the way for the voting. But yesterday, we decided that the common fund will come here with their formula. Mr. Speaker, as I can see, the common fund administrator is sitting right there. So instead of starting a new business, instead of starting a new business, I can hear you know. You want a vote, isn't it? We should break into committee of the whole and consider the common fund. Or Mr. Speaker, apart from that, then Mr. Speaker, can you restrain my colleagues?
Honourable members, order, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. Either we allow the common fund administrator to brief us, or we wait, or you suspend. Because I know, or we suspend. We suspend and wait for Mr. Speaker and come for us to take the vote, Mr. Speaker. Because this is a major, Mr. Speaker, the revenue bills are a major undertaking, and we are thinking that we need enough time to do that. So instead of starting and stopping, we should suspend and allow Mr. Speaker to come to the chair. So we take the vote, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Speaker, I listened to my colleague, but it's important we communicate the facts. It's important we put the fact across. Speaker, with respect to my colleague, Minority Chokwe, today at conclave, let's Speaker, you bear me out. Among the items that were considered to be taken on the floor, we never mentioned the common fund. These were the items we talked about. We talked about the motion on the Supreme Court Justice. We also talked about taking the question on the ministerial and deputy ministerial nominee. And then, of course, the financial revenue bills. The common fund matter was an agreement between you and I. Of course, the meeting we had and leadership supersedes the meeting the two of us have. So please, this is not a matter we have to split our heads over. We shouldn't split our heads over this. The Speaker has given indication. We are ready to take the vote. In the absence of the Speaker, we can go on.
The Speaker is here.
Exactly. So we go ahead and take the vote. Are we ready for the vote? We are ready for the vote.
Honourable members, I've heard both sides now. Can I have some order, please? Can I have some order?
No, Mr. Speaker,
as the floor, Honourable, as agreed at a conclave, after the debate, we will take the vote. Mr. Speaker has just sent his clerk to advise me that he's here. So the table office will start preparing while the Speaker comes to take the charge. The Speaker will be here in a moment to take the chair, and then we'll proceed with the vote. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Leader.
Mr. Speaker, with respect, I think we have signaled that is within the presence. He wants to come and preside while we take the vote. We have not suspended sitting. And in the meantime, if we can take the revenue bill before he comes, because we cannot wait here doing nothing when the house has not been suspended. We can't continue to wait here. The house has not been suspended. There's business for us to transact. And it's not here. I'll have to sit down. I'll agree with you. Let's start revenue bill. We are not going to take any vote. I'm not going to take a decision on them. I will do the consideration of bills. When he comes, we'll be part of it. If we have to vote on them, we'll be part of it. Otherwise, would anybody then agree that this is deliberate? Today is Friday. And if you have to wait, the Speaker, let me then sound that the three businesses certainly were going to transact. Whatever happens, the three businesses were going to transact, even if you have to sit up to 12 midnight. With a greater respect.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if you recall yesterday, what the agreement was that after the debate this morning, we will come and vote on the ministerial appointment. When we went to conclave, the issue of the judges was brought. And we agreed that we come in and then we do the debate. And after the debate, we will now vote on the ministerial appointment and vote on the judges. That was the agreement.
So we should go ahead and vote.
And then after that, we will now look at what time we have and see what other things that we can do. That's what we agreed on. You talked about the other economic bills. And we said after we have taken all of this, let's vote. So we are at the point where we should be voting. And as you suggest, the speaker is coming to take over. And we said that you can take the suspension while we wait for the speaker. So if that is the case, we suspension. Because where we are right now is to vote. So Mr. Speaker, that is where and nothing else.
Honorable colleagues, we are here because after the table of is to set up the voting system. Mr. Speaker will come when the place is ready, he will take it over. But the table of is to set the place up. We then take the chair.
Honorable members, please lend me your ears. I've just been given a detailed brief to what transpired this morning and yesterday at the meeting of the joint caucus. Honorable members, hope you are listening to what I'm saying. Because I want you to guide me as to the procedure we should adopt. We have a guide from our standards, but definitely in some of these situations, to get things smoothly done, we need the members to be involved in the final decision. Yesterday, for good reason, we deferred taking a decision on the motion to adopt the report of the Appointments Committee in giving a prior approval to the appointment of ministers and deputy ministers. We deferred it to today. This morning, we've gone through that one, the motion dealing with the nominations of members to the Supreme Court. I've been briefed that at the joint caucus meeting, you agreed to have both taken at the same, that is the vote on the judges and the ministers. I want to know whether that is the case, so that we know the system to adopt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was at conclave this morning. We have said that these are separate motions. Decision on the appointment of the minister and the judges are separate motions, and we agreed that we'll vote on them separately. And that was the agreement.
Yes.
So, Mr. Speaker, we agreed to vote them separately at the same time. So we are going to have one ballot box, just as on the national elections we vote presidential and parliamentary. You are given a ballot for presidential, you vote, you put it in a box. You are given a ballot on parliamentary, you vote, you put it in a box. The position is that we are going to have two ballot boxes, have separate voting but at the same time. So you go, the clerk gives you one ballot paper which has the list of the ministerial nominees. You finish voting, you pick another one for the Supreme Court judges, and then you put it in. Mr. Speaker, that was the understanding, and Mrs. The first deputy speaker who presided is here to validate the point I've just made. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, it is true. Mr. Speaker, it is true that the respected deputy leader made the suggestion at conclave that we should do what he is describing. We said no because of the controversies. Mr. Speaker, there are two different motions. We are already here to take the vote. We should go through the first motion, take the vote on the ministers or the judges, can't declare it, then we go on the second one, Mr. That there was no agreement to do what he said. He did make the proposal, but there was no decision on that. That is the fact, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, let's listen to the person who presided over the proceedings of the joint caucus meeting, the first deputy speaker. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is true. I proposed that we do the two votings together, two separate boxes. From one end, you continue to the other end. There was no agreement between the two sides. So I told them that actually decision is to be made by Mr. Speaker. So if we can agree, we should leave that and come here. So we'll leave you to make the discretion. That was how we concluded.
Well, honorable members, in this matter, I am the Electoral Commission. After listening to the chair, I cannot listen to you again. Please. I agree with those who are proposing that there are different motions and we should take them differently. And so we'll take yesterday's one first. The one dealing with the nominations of the ministers and deputy ministers. Then I'll declare the results. Then after that, we'll deal with it today. We have enough time to do that. I'll be here throughout. These honorable members is secret vote. I want to emphasize on the word secret vote. If there's any slight evidence that the vote is not secret, it will not be accepted. Without that, as you know, I survived through secret voting, so I treasure secret voting. I am the Electoral Commissioner. Yes, so let's start with the vote on the now nominations. What we're going to do is that we're using the list of names of the members of parliament. And so you all be seated. And when your name is mentioned, you move forward to be given the ballot. You go and vote and then move back to your seat. Your seat. We are not going to talk about people standing. You have to be seated. Your name will be mentioned, and that is why we need you to be quiet. If not, you will not hear your name to come to vote. We have the ballot papers, they are ready. Yes, Honorable Mama Yarga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you have explained some aspects of the voting procedure. In the case of both the ministers and we have a number of nominees. You haven't been to us how the ballot paper is going to be presented. So the nominees and then the provision for voting. When it was you alone, Mr. Speaker, it was clear. It was just you, and then provision was for voting for or against. But since there are several nominees, how is the format of the ballot paper going to look like? We just need some clarification.
This is a sample ballot paper. Ministers and deputy ministers, one ballot paper. The boxes yes and no are indicated against the names and the proposed sectors they are to preside over. So you indicate in the box whether yes or no. So there is one. We have a way counting, and then we will then ask you to nominate tellers to be available for the counting. So please, this is for the ministers. The judges, we have, there are two categories, two names. The first two names, I'm told, there's not much controversy concerning that. Then the other two, where you have some differences, they are also together. The ballot paper is there. I can show you a sample. The other ballot paper, or the judges. Honorable members, sample ballot for the judges. Yes, Honorable Mama Yarga.
Mr. Speaker,
Yes,
we just wanted to also know whether you brought a CI to this house to govern the design of the ballot paper.
CI on what?
A CI on the design of this ballot paper. The design of the ballot paper.
Honorable member, are you a 5'10", 5'10" member of parliament? This is from practice procedure. Please, there are too many of you on your feet. We don't need any disruptions. We don't need obstruction. We don't want to hear. You have to listen to us. Honorable members, we are now to commence the process. When your name is mentioned, please walk up to the table office. You'll be given a ballot. You proceed through do your voting and get back to the table office where the ballot boxes. We don't want many of you piled at the table office. Please. Yes, Deputy Minority Whip.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are requesting for copies of the voters register to be given to our two polling agents. One, I will sit here and be marking, and the Honorable Minority Chief Whip will stand by that place and also be marking. So as agents, we need copies of the register, and we must set a good example. This is a harmful request.
Honorable member, you are completely out of order. I've indicated that we are going to use the list of the members of parliament. That is the register. And we have indicated that we will call you by your name and your constituency, and you walk out here to the glare of every person gathered here, including the gallery. And so if you are an imposter, we will identify you. I insist that this is secret. Secret means secret. Please, I'll be very, very vigilant myself as the electoral commissioner. And I have the power to disqualify a voter. Yes, so let's start. We will go by alphabetical order. Yes. Deputy Majority Leader. Honorable members, be seated. The time for Cambover. Yes, Deputy Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I'm on my feet to seek your guidance on Article 78 of the Constitution, as well as Order 172(4). Mr. Speaker, Article 78 provides, and with your leave, I read, that ministers of state shall be appointed by the President with the prior approval of Parliament from among members of Parliament or persons qualified to be elected as members of Parliament, except that the majority of ministers shall be appointed from among members of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, for my purpose, the emphasis is the prior approval. And the Constitution under Article 78 does not state the procedure for giving this prior approval. However, Mr. Speaker, if you go to Article 110 of the Constitution, the same Constitution says that Parliament, subject to the provisions of the Constitution by standing orders, regulate its procedure. Mr. Speaker, we have had several occasions in this House where we have used practice to set aside the standing orders and in on the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, there are some other provisions in the Constitution that talk about secret ballot when it comes to electing or removing a person from public office. Mr. Speaker, what we are doing is not an election. We are approving. And I know that Order 172(4) provides that the committee shall report to Parliament within 3 days after it has concluded its proceedings when Parliament is sitting. Parliamentary approval of persons required for appointment shall be by secret ballot or by consensus. So, Mr. Speaker, although the Constitution talks about prior approval in general terms and does not provide a specific procedure for achieving that, our own standing order creates two main avenues of disjunctive effect. Mr. Speaker, I am bringing argument forward because yesterday, and I'm quoting my respected colleague, Amoah and my respected colleague, Honorable Amoah, when there arose an occasion to have further engagement on this matter, I recall that Amoah said that we are all members of Parliament and that our colleagues in this House, that we should not take ourselves through that burden of having to engage in a secret ballot. Mr. Speaker, that move occasioned some discussions, and Honorable Amoah, in applying for suspension, relied on that to say that, Mr. Speaker, we want a 1-hour suspension so that we could explore the possibility of dealing with that issue. Mr. Speaker, the argument here is very simple. Our colleagues in the minority, who are 136, have made it clear
that they are opposed to these nominees. So, Mr. Speaker, I am saying that we are masters of our own rules. Mr. Speaker, if we decide, perhaps, to be masters of our own rules without sinning against the Constitution, we will be acting within the lines of the Constitution. This is a subsidiary legislation that we have enacted, that day in, day out, for our purpose, we take a decision and say that this is a malpractice, and we go by it. All I am saying that, Mr. Speaker, to the extent that Order 172(4) gives a disjointed effect in its import of what is required in taking such a decision. And one is by consensus. If we achieve consensus, and we know as a fact that the whole 136 of the minority are against, and the whole 137 of the majority are for, Mr. Speaker, I invite this out to construe and appreciate within the context of that to mean that, Mr. Speaker, we can adopt of that consensus, Mr. Speaker, which would mean that the decision for the approval, because we are not elected, so Mr. Speaker, the argument I'm making is that the provision for secret ballot in itself is not provided for by the Constitution. And let us know, any student of Constitution knows that we cannot by an enactment create a law that would overshadow, or be at variance with the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, I repeat that we as a House have the mandate under Article 110 to enact our own regulations. But, Mr. Speaker, we cannot, in enacting our own regulations, seek to enact a law that would be at variance with the Constitution. Because, Mr. Speaker, anywhere that the Constitution wanted a secret ballot, like in your case, can I finish this constitutional argument so that you tell me, Mr. Speaker, I'm protected by you. Mr. Speaker, it is my submission that anywhere the Constitution has intended a secret ballot, Mr. Speaker, it is essential that anywhere the Constitution had intended a secret ballot, the Constitution has said so. Two, where the Constitution expected of us to enact a regulation to guide our conduct, the Constitution has also provided for. It is therefore my case again, Mr. Speaker, that to the extent that the Constitution gave a general approach to guide us, we as a House cannot, through our enactment, restrict and provide for a very thinner approach in achieving that purpose of approval. We are not elected, and anywhere the Constitution has talked about electing a public officer, it emphasized secret ballot, and that was the case. So, Mr. Speaker, I shall land.
Honorable Party Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
You have landed. And you have landed very well. Yes, you have landed very well. I'm sure you know one very popular former member of Parliament, filibuster. You know filibuster.
Mr. Speaker.
Do you know filibuster?
Mr. Speaker, I know that you have not prejudiced my submission. Mr. Speaker, I know that you enjoy debate and you always want us to learn. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, if you are putting the question to me whether or not I know,
he was
Mr. Speaker, my submission.
That's what in any way was a well-known member of Parliament, and by his practice, the word filibustering was formed. The filibuster of this house. So I have elevated to a very high position because that was an initiative and a practice that has been adopted all over the world, and I've seen that in you, and so that is just done. Definitely, as Speaker, I'll just overrule you and we'll proceed. Honest, we are just creating space to finish up with all the nitty-gritty of the process. That's why I'm allowing this. We have given you now copies of the list of members so that you can go through as we call you up. Have you got the copies?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we have 2 copies as you directed.
Okay. Majority side, you got the copies, the list. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I encourage my colleague to speak to the mic that yes, he's got 2 copies as well. It's important, Mr. Speaker. Have you got 2 copies of the members list?
Speaker, he should not invite me into unnecessary battle. He should not. Who has complained? Who is complaining?
Marshal Department, please get ready to perform their duties. Read your standard orders. You get to know the role of the Marshal. Yes. I think the arrangement that I'm seeing here, the arrangement I'm seeing here, the person will decide how to vote in one of them and drop the box here. Okay. So just one ballot. One box. That's right. We will not encourage crisscrossing. So, honorable members from my left, the ballot box is here. Clerk at table, please, let's start. Abata somewhere. Repeat. Abata Samuel Erickson.
Honorable members, please be on your seats. Members, please be at your seats. Honorable members, either you want to vote or you don't want to vote. If you want us to conduct the vote to indicate our prior approval, resume your seats. Please. If not, I will suspend sitting. It's in the standing orders. I am not going to recognize any person to make contribution. Please, resume it. You are all campaigning and you are expecting your constituents to vote for you. Yet, you are... Honorable members, if you were listening to me, I invited the personnel of the Marshal Department to get ready. So we have some personnel from the Marshal Department on my left and we have some on my right. The purpose is for them to perform their duty when called upon by the Speaker. The standing orders are very clear. If you doubt it, read your standing orders. And so we are going to start.
Mr. Speaker, sitting here, you can see that the box on the left is tilted towards you. The same thing, the box on the right should be tilted towards you. So we avoid any intrusion from the right. But the marshal keeps turning it to the other side. That's what I'm complaining. If you turn it towards you, that's right.
Speaker, I think the ballot box on this side has been tilted to your side. In fact, we are worried that you even see the ballot. I'm suggesting that you allow the first deputy speaker to come up and show us exactly where he wants the people.
Honorable members, let me assure you that where I sit, I can't see anybody indicating where the person is voting. I can't. Both ballot boxes, I can't see. The ballot, I can't. So you are safe. But the doubt is deep. The lack of trust in each other is really deep. So please, the right thing will be done.
Yes, Majority Chief Whip.
Speaker, with respect, I think this is a point that we shouldn't belabor. Us are trying to help the process to be sanitized, free and fair. Speaker, one of the approaches that will help us to avoid things not being transparent is that we on your right side will vote on your left side. And then out on the left to vote on the right. This will avoid anybody showing to the other side. That is it. I insist. We are complete. It's the best. We keep on. Nobody will show a ballot paper. So that nobody. And this position will avoid any voter showing the ballot paper to the other side. You want to show your vote? We will allow you. In secret, you will show. Yeah. So that's my humble plea. And no respect, this will save us all this hassle. Let's just push cross, and all of us will save this hassle.
Please. Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, clearly our brothers on the majority side are afraid to vote today. Mr. Speaker, the antics they are showing clearly shows that they are not ready to vote today, and they are afraid. They are afraid. Mr. Speaker, the suggestion by the majority chief whip indicates that they want to come and sit this side of the house. Mr. Speaker, if they hurry to come to your left, that is the opposition, we welcome them to come and sit here, so that we go and sit there. Mr. Speaker, we will not agree. We will not agree that members on this side should this way. So Speaker, concentrate at your back and rather get your back to vote for you. So Speaker, we strongly disagree. So Speaker, our position is that cannot happen. We disagree. And if they are not ready to vote, Mr. Speaker, today is Friday. Our colleagues, the Muslim community, we are in a Ramadan period. So Speaker, then let us suspend sitting and come back next week to continue. If they are not ready, we are ready. But if they are not ready, we can go home. They are afraid to vote. They are afraid to vote. Ready to vote. Go and sit down and let's start the voting. Then we can read the vote. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Assure my colleagues, in fact, when we came in the morning, if you recall,
Honorable Majority Chief Whip, I haven't recognized you. You can't just get up and start speaking. Honorable members,
I've made my point. In this house, the practice has been.
Honorable Majority Chief Whip,
Should resume my seat?
resume your seat.
Honorable members, I invite the leadership of the House to meet me in my lobby. Taking is suspended. Today is Friday.
We will vote.
You are losing. Why are you?